Chosen ones, 7 signs you possess the forbidden power of both light and dark. Imagine being born with a frequency that doesn't match the world around you. You laugh differently. You see through things people take for granted. You feel truths no one else dares to speak. You're not just a misfit, you're a mirror. And the universe, in its infinite precision, designed you that way on purpose. Because hidden within you is something most people fear before they understand it: the forbidden power. The ability to walk between both light and dark, not as a victim of chaos or a blind servant of love, but as a conscious being who understands that both are necessary for balance, transformation, and rebirth. If you're watching this, it means your soul has already whispered its truth to you. You're not here to play small. You're here to remember. The first sign that you possess the power of both light and dark is that you've never truly fit into either extreme. You don't resonate with purely love and light spiritualism that denies pain, nor do you belong to the chaos-driven paths that glorify suffering. You've touched both. You've lived through your own darkness. You've wrestled with your shadows, sometimes alone, in silence, while the world moved on. And yet, you've also felt the light beaming through you like a memory of who you really are. That paradox, that in-between, that's not confusion. That's initiation. Most people pick a side and cling to it for safety, but not you. You are forged to walk the edge, to hold the tension of the opposites until something new is born. You don't belong in a box because you came to break them.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The second sign is that you've experienced intense spiritual isolation. Not just loneliness, but sacred solitude. The kind that makes you question your sanity. You've watched people laugh and live, while inside you, entire galaxies of emotion and insight were erupting. You've sensed things you couldn't explain, seen glimpses of other lifetimes, felt the weight of collective pain in your chest. And no one noticed. No one knew you were carrying entire worlds inside you. That's because you weren't being ignored, you were being prepared. The universe hides its most powerful beings in plain sight. It cloaks them in ordinary lives. Because if your full power were revealed before you could handle it, it would destroy you or those around you. So you were kept in the womb of silence until your soul matured enough to wield what you carry without distortion. That loneliness, it was never punishment, it was protection. The third sign is that you have an uncanny ability to read people's energy, even when they try to hide it. You don't just hear what someone says, you feel the frequency behind their words. You know when someone is lying, even if their smile is perfect. You sense buried anger, hidden sadness, repressed desires. Sometimes it overwhelms you. Sometimes you wish you could not feel so much. But you can't turn it off, because you weren't meant to. That sensitivity is your radar, your divine technology. And here's what most people don't realize: that gift doesn't just let you see people, it lets you shift them. Your presence alone begins to rearrange the energy in a room. You don't need to say much. When you walk into a space, others either feel calm or triggered. That's because your field is active. It's doing work whether you try or not. The light in you activates truth. The darkness in you reveals falsehood. And both are necessary for real transformation. The fourth sign is that you've faced darkness not just around you but within you. And instead of running from it, you learned to sit with it. You've had thoughts that scared you. You've felt rage, grief, jealousy, even hatred. But instead of burying those emotions, you studied them. You asked, "What are you really here to teach me?" And that's the difference. Most people are afraid of their shadow. They deny it, suppress it, or project it onto others. But you made space for it. You learned that the shadow isn't the enemy. It's the guardian of your power. Your darkness isn't something to be cleansed, it's something to be integrated. Because when you own it, it doesn't control you. It becomes a tool, and you become whole. The forbidden power lies not in denying the dark, but in commanding it with love. The fifth sign is that you've felt a deep calling since childhood, a sense that you were here for something big, though you couldn't name it. You might have seen visions, had vivid dreams, or sensed presences around you. You may have even felt watched, as if unseen eyes were tracking your movements, not maliciously, but with purpose. That wasn't paranoia, that was activation. Chosen ones are often contacted in subtle ways before they awaken. You may have felt drawn to mysticism, ancient symbols, or stories of heroes who carry both light and shadow. That's because your soul was remembering. And what you were remembering was your mission. You weren't born to follow paths, you were born to forge them. And the reason your life has felt heavier than others is because you're carrying the blueprint for something entirely new. The sixth sign is that your emotions are extreme, volatile, and often misunderstood. You don't just feel sadness, you feel the sorrow of generations. You don't just feel joy, you erupt with bliss that shakes your body. Your emotional range is not a flaw, it's a spectrum of power. It's how you move energy, how you purge distortion, how you create. You are an emotional alchemist, but if you haven't learned how to regulate that yet, it may have felt like a curse. You may have been called too much, too dramatic, too intense. But what if that intensity is the very thing needed to break spells in the collective? What if your tears recalibrate timelines? What if your anger burns illusions? What if your laughter cracks open the hearts of those around you? Have you ever asked yourself why your emotions feel so much bigger than everyone else's? Maybe it's because your soul is older than theirs, and it remembers what they've forgotten. And the seventh sign, the one that no one talks about, but is the most important, is this: you've always known you could destroy. You felt the power to shatter, to dismantle, to devastate, and yet you choose not to. Not out of fear, but out of love. That restraint, that choice to hold back even when you could scorch the earth, that's mastery. That's sacred power. Because true power isn't in domination, it's in discernment. You have the capacity for both creation and destruction. And the world needs both. You hold the medicine and the sword. The light to heal, the dark to protect, and the wisdom to know when to use each. So now I ask you, what happens when you stop denying either side? What happens when you accept that you were never meant to be one or the other, but both? The sacred split, why your inner conflict is the map to your multidimensional power. There's a reason the most powerful beings on earth are the ones who have tasted both light and shadow and dared to stay conscious through it. There's a reason you've felt torn, conflicted, like two opposing beings living in one body. That internal war you've been fighting, it's not dysfunction, it's not confusion, it's your initiation. The sacred split is not a flaw in your design, it's the key to unlocking your multidimensional power. Because only those who can hold paradox within themselves without collapsing are trusted to wield power that could alter reality. If you've ever felt like you're carrying two worlds inside you, one that wants to love everything and one that wants to burn it all down, you're not broken. You're on the edge of something extraordinary. We were taught that good and evil are opposites. That light must conquer the dark. That to be spiritual is to transcend rage, grief, jealousy, lust, or ambition. But the truth is far more nuanced and far more powerful. You were not born to live half a life. You were not meant to amputate half your soul in order to be accepted by a system that's afraid of wholeness. You were meant to integrate, to bring the pieces back together that the world said must remain divided. And this is why your internal conflict has been so intense. Because the parts of you that society labeled dangerous, the parts that feel too much, want too much, know too much, those are the very pieces that hold your ancient codes. When you suppress your darkness, you don't become pure, you become fragmented. You lose access to the very instincts, boundaries, and primal wisdom that protect your light from being exploited. And when you reject your light, you don't become strong, you become bitter. You lose the softness, the compassion, the vision that turns power into purpose. But when you allow both to coexist, when you stop trying to be only this or only that, you become something rare. You become whole. And wholeness is magnetic. Wholeness bends the fabric of reality. Well, wholeness doesn't need to dominate because it commands from the core. I think about the greatest spiritual teachers, warriors, mystics, and revolutionaries throughout history. They weren't one-dimensional. They didn't just float in bliss or dwell in chaos. They walked between worlds. They confronted their inner demons and still chose to serve humanity. They knew how to wield a sword and a prayer. And the reason their energy is still felt centuries later is because they didn't run from the sacred split, they became it. That's what you're being called into now. Not to become someone else, but to fully remember who you've always been beneath the programming. And yes, the process is messy. It's uncomfortable. There are days where you'll feel like you're being torn in two. Days where you wake up ready to love the world and go to bed ready to destroy it. Days where your shadow screams louder than your soul. That's not failure. That's friction. And friction is how diamonds are made. Every time you hold space for both your rage and your tenderness, your grief and your joy, your desire and your discipline, you're expanding your energetic range. You're becoming a vessel strong enough to hold real power, not just influence, but impact. But this requires radical honesty. You can't integrate what you still deny. You can't master what you still demonize. You must be willing to sit with your inner villain just as much as your inner healer, to ask the versions of you that scare you the most, what do you need to feel safe? Because here's the secret, your shadow doesn't want to sabotage you. It wants to serve you. But it was never taught how. It was exiled instead of trained. And now it's waiting. Waiting for you to stop calling it evil and start calling it home. This is why the chosen ones are so rare. Not because the power is rare, but because so few are willing to hold the tension of the sacred split without trying to fix it, escape it, or numb it. Most people want clarity, simplicity, comfort. But you're being called to something far greater. You're being called to become the bridge between dimensions, between timelines, between polarities. And to do that, you must first become the bridge within yourself. So I'll ask you one of the most important questions you will ever hear on this path. What would it mean for you to stop healing your darkness and start mentoring it? What power have you locked away in the name of being good? And are you brave enough to reclaim it now? Because the truth is, your light was never meant to shine instead of your darkness. It was meant to shine through it. The forbidden merge, how to activate the power that destroys illusion and rebuilds destiny. There comes a moment on every chosen one's path when the split is no longer sustainable. You feel it not as a breakdown, but as a breakthrough disguised in chaos. It's the moment when pretending to be only light becomes unbearable. When hiding your darkness begins to feel like betrayal. When your soul whispers it's time and your ego trembles because it knows what's coming. This is the moment of the forbidden merge. The moment when you stop trying to choose a side and begin allowing both to coexist, to inform each other, to fuse. Not in conflict but in command. Because once light and dark unite inside of you consciously, deliberately, and without shame, something ancient activates. Something that no system can replicate, no doctrine can define. You become the alchemical fire, the destroyer of illusion, the rebuilder of destiny. You see, light without shadow can become naive. It can be manipulated, overrun, drained. It clings to comfort, avoids confrontation, and seeks only harmony, often at the cost of truth. Darkness without light becomes corrupted. It consumes rather than creates. It burns bridges, isolates, and seeks control. But when the two meet in balance, when you allow your shadow to protect your light, and your light to illuminate your shadow, you become what mystics and warriors across time have called the living gate. The one who sees clearly through both illusion and truth. The one who can burn down what no longer serves and then build anew. But to unlock this, you must face the fear that's kept you fragmented, the fear of your own power. Because deep down, you've always known that if you truly stepped into your full frequency, if you stopped holding back your voice, your insight, your presence, you would change everything. And that terrified you. Not because you didn't want it, but because you knew the cost. You knew it would mean the end of pretending, the death of your masks, the collapse of relationships built on who you used to be. That fear kept you small. But now, staying small is more painful than expanding. The merge is inevitable. And when it happens, you don't become something new, you remember what you've always been. At this stage, your power becomes more subtle, but more devastating. You no longer need to prove anything. Your presence alone begins to shift rooms, expose lies, and elevate truth. People who are not ready for that level of truth will either be drawn to you obsessively or repelled instantly. You'll find that you no longer need to fight for space. Space makes itself around you, not because you demanded it, but because your energy carries the weight of integration. When you speak, it's not just words, it's frequency. Your gaze becomes catalytic. Your silence becomes instructional. You embody the paradox, and in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. But this is not a path without discipline. To hold this level of power, you must be ruthlessly self-aware. You must know when your shadow is rising from wisdom and when it's rising from wounding. You must know when your light is guiding and when it's escaping. Merging doesn't mean chaos, it means discernment. It means mastering your own energy so deeply that you can shift in and out of roles, frequencies, and states without losing your center. This is warrior energy. This is priestess energy. This is creator energy. You no longer seek to control outcomes, you shape realities through your being. So I ask you now, gently but powerfully, what illusions are you still feeding in order to feel safe? What truths have you been afraid to unleash because you feared they'd destroy what you've built? Are you willing to let it all fall so something true can finally rise? Because the forbidden merge is not the end of your journey, it's the beginning of your reign. The final seal, living as the architect of a new timeline. Once the merge takes place, when you no longer see yourself as either light or dark, but as the conscious keeper of both, you cross an invisible threshold. A seal within you breaks open silently, and what emerges is not merely a more powerful version of yourself, but an entirely different being. You are no longer just a seeker. You become a source. You are no longer just awakening, you are activating. And from this point forward, your life can no longer be lived passively. Every thought, every choice, every intention begins to bend timelines. This is the final seal. The moment your existence ceases to be about survival or even healing and becomes about creating reality itself. What does it mean to live as the architect of a new timeline? It means you understand that every moment you embody your truth, you generate and broadcast a unique energetic blueprint, a frequency that didn't exist before. You're not copying what came before. You're not following a map. You are the map. Your wounds become data. Your wisdom becomes code. And your presence becomes a template that others unconsciously begin to align with. This is why your journey has been so intense. Why the trials never made sense to others. Because you weren't just being tested, you were being coded. Layer by layer, choice by choice, your soul was being programmed to carry the weight of a new world. What separates the true chosen ones from those who merely speak of awakening is this: embodiment. Many can talk about light. Fewer can hold their darkness. But only a rare few can walk this earth with the full integration of both while remaining clear, humble, and powerful. These are the ones who shift global consciousness without needing a stage. They walk into a room and the room recalibrates. They say one sentence, and it echoes in the hearts of others for years, not because they are trying, but because they are aligned. Alignment is the most magnetic force in the universe. And when you live from alignment, you don't chase purpose, purpose finds you. But here is what most people never realize: this level of power comes with a sacred responsibility. You are no longer just making choices for yourself. You are making choices as a representative of the new frequency. That means your integrity must be razor sharp. Your discernment must be clear. You must know when to speak and when to remain silent. You must master the art of stillness as much as action. Because from this point on, your energy speaks louder than your words. Your aura becomes a living signal. And every moment you live in coherence with your truth, you are reshaping the collective grid. You will be tested, not by enemies, but by old versions of yourself that try to pull you back. The timeline of who you used to be will try to re-anchor itself through familiar faces, old habits, tempting distractions. That's how reality checks if your frequency is locked in. And when you feel that pull, you must ask yourself, do I want comfort or do I want destiny? Because you cannot have both. The old world will always offer you a seat at a table you've outgrown, but only if you shrink to fit it. And you didn't come here to shrink. You came here to build a new table. So now, with the final seal open, you must live as what you are, a walking embodiment of encoded truth, a transmitter of balance, a destroyer of illusion, a rebuilder of timelines, not perfectly, not flawlessly, but consciously. Because no one is coming to save this world. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And if you've made it this far, it means your soul has already said yes, quietly, completely, irrevocably. So I ask you, one last time, what would your life look like if you stopped trying to remember who you were and started creating who you're here to become? Because the moment you stop waiting for the world to change is the moment the world begins to change through you. Now go, walk as the architect, speak as the frequency, love as the light, protect as the shadow, and lead as the living code. The timeline is already shifting. We are the signal, and you are the proof.